Hi everybody, welcome back once again to the Eastfield Gunroom YouTube channel. So today we have got what I believe is a world exclusive review, comparison if you like, between Beretta's brand new SL2 hypergun new kid on the block and this sensational, without a doubt, most successful competition Beretta of all time, the DT11. So before we do that, if you do watch the videos and you do enjoy them, please do hit like, please do hit subscribe, because we do appreciate your support. So a couple of weeks ago, I was lucky enough to get my hands on the fantastic new Beretta competition gun, the SL2. Massive hype surrounding this gun. I was desperate to get hold of one. We've done a full review, so do check that out because it is on the channel. So following that review, I had a number of inquiries, people saying, that SL2, Matt, it's absolutely sensational, it's something else. I was thinking about buying a DT11, I was going to treat myself, but I can't get the SL2 out of my head. So what is the difference? Is it worth all the extra money? So today we are going to take the SL2 and the DT11 and we're going to put them under the spotlight, look at the specifications, look at the technologies, look at the comparisons. We're going to give you a visual so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. You can make your own assessments, but ultimately I will tell you what I think of these guns when we look at them side by side or over and under. So what I have here is I have a Freddo chocolate bar. Now I'm a big fan of these. Now what we need to do is, I don't like to talk about prices on this channel because you can get too bogged down with it, but the DT11 cost one Freddo and the SL2 comes in at 2 Freddos. So I want you to remember that throughout the video, and if we get to the point where there's no Freddos, it's because I got a bit peckish. So if we start with the DT11, this is Beretta's flagship competition gun. It was launched back in 2012, still massively popular today and used largely by athletes, Olympians, and of course the Beretta pro shooters worldwide. Now the SL2 is a synergy of the DT11 and the SO format in terms of the lockup and the barrel systems, etc. And because of the input of the pro shooters when Beretta were developing and designing this gun, I feel like it's only a matter of time before the SL2 starts appearing on the podium. A month or so ago, we did a comparison video between the all-new Miracle MK38 competition and the already popular Browning Ultra XS Pro. If you haven't seen it, do check it out. This video is going to follow exactly the same format. So we're also going to start off with the action. I have got the SL2 in my left hand and I've got the DT11 in my right hand. I sound like a magician, okay? So we can see there straight away that there's a difference in the actual profile of the action. So the DT11, which was the successor to the DT10, has actually got a 3mm increase in the width of the action because it uses the Kirsten bolt locking system from the ASE and the SO series. If we look at the SL2, that's a completely different shape. It's got like this taper to the action because what Beretta did is they wanted to reduce the width of the action completely, and in order to do that they had to change where they put the weight, where they put the mass in the action, so ultimately ended up towards the bottom to ensure that the balance of the gun wasn't compromised. So in terms of the aesthetics of the action, we have got the Nissan, not Nissan, that's a Japanese car manufacturer, finish on the DT11. We've got the Azuri blue line decals and we've got these sort of chrome shoulders, which this is such a familiar gun. You will see it all over the place on shooting grounds. You'll see it all over the television when there's an event on. And it's got to the point now where it's instantly recognizable because of its silver and blue design. The SL2 in stark comparison, we have got the DLC, which is diamond-like carbon coating on the action. We've got this matte graphite finish. Both guns bearing the famous Beretta Trident logo on the bottom with their respective names. And if we turn them on their side, that's where you can really see the difference in the actual width of the profile of the action, with the SL2 being narrower, of course, at the top than the DT11 because of the absence of the Kirsten bolt. I think the thing to point out here is you've kind of got the DT11, which very closely resembles the DT10 in terms of the aesthetics and the lines of it, whereas this is much more avant-garde, the SL2. It's sort of, like I said, many people refer to it as a hypergun because you've got these lines, which of course is the whole idea with that, is the improved vision of the shooter, which you haven't got with the DT11. And I believe that's one of the main reasons when Beretta actually consulted their pro shooters that they wanted to slim down the action to increase that visibility. On the back of the action with the DT11, we've got that familiar stippling, which has been on the kind of DT10s, ASEs of yesteryear. and then we go on to the SL2, and this is where Beretta spent an absolute fortune in research and development. So what they did is they covered it with these laser engraved micro module thingy bobs, and the idea with that is it absorbs all the light and it makes for the ultimate in anti-glare. Top levers, you have got a similar design. It's longer on the SL2 with a pierced top lever. On the DT11, it's just got a big, thick, chunky paddle. And of course, the whole idea behind the top lever on guns of this level is ease of opening and comfort to the shooter. Onto the selectors and the safety catches. This particular SL2 is a trap action, so it's non-selective. This sporting DT11 has got a selective trigger, but ultimately the design is slightly different. The one with the SL2 is a bit more rugged and a bit better, I would imagine, for grip. Although having said that, the DT11 is also a very, very positive switch. So in terms of the inside of the action, again, you can notice that tapered profile of the SL2. If you look inside there with the DT11, you will see the gaps in the top of the action, which is where the Kirsten bolt locates for the lockup, whereas the SL2, because it's the SO10 locking system, it doesn't have the Kirsten bolt, which allows it to be that narrower profile. So incidentally, both locking systems work really well. You know, the original Kirsten bolt design was from the SO series of guns, and it gives you maximum lockup, so there's no movement in the action and it absorbs all the recoil over the shooting life of the shotgun. Having said that, the lockup system that the SO10 gives you means that there is absolutely zero movement, and I think from a longevity point of view, you will probably find that the SO lockup will outlast the Kirsten bolt, but we're talking about billions and billions of cartridges. Another thing to point out, if you look at the inside of the action, you'll notice that at the bottom of the SL2, the recess is different, and that's just all to do with where the barrels are located. Wood to metal fit on both guns is excellent, although I think it's quite noticeable when we look at them from this angle, the amount of different tapers and the flowing lines of the SL2, whereas you look at the DT11, it just looks a bit more blocky. Onto the underside of the action, and of course the world famous detachable trigger group from Beretta. Now this is something these guns actually share. The mechanics, the internals of the trigger group in each gun is identical. The only difference is of course the actual shape of the trigger guard. So it's worth pointing out here that if you've got a DT11, an SL2 trigger group will not fit it, and if you've got an SL2, a DT11 trigger group will not fit it. Aesthetically, we've got the DLC coating on the SL2 and the Nistan finish, which is more matte on the DT11. Both triggers are adjustable, and again, they use the same system in that respect, whereby you slacken the screw off, whiz it along the rail and wang it up. So another thing that these guns actually share in terms of a feature, this is more of a cosmetic aesthetic feature, is they've both got these chrome shoulders on the bottom of the action. And the idea with that is just to ensure that where the contact points are, where guns get carried over people's arms or whether they get handled a lot, that they're just a bit more durable, a bit more impervious to rust, and ultimately they wear slower. So onto the barrels, and here we start to see considerable differences between these two shotguns. So if we start with the barrel length the guns are available in, when we start with the DT11, you can have a 28-inch, 30-inch, 31-inch or 32-inch sporter, 30 or 32-inch trap, and a 28 or a 29-inch skeet gun. Onto the SL2, we have the option for 30 and 32-inch sporters, no 28 in this particular model, 30-inch trap, and 29.5 and 30-inch skeet guns. Now, like I said in the video review of the gun when I shot it, that just kind of shows you the level of athlete this gun is aimed at, because they're giving you such a small increment for the skeet versions, which of course is an Olympic discipline, and you've just got to be at the top of your game. So in terms of boring, we have got the DT11, okay, which historically, when it first came out in 2012, made massive waves regarding the actual boring of the gun and the fact that it was massively overbored, almost to the point of a 10 gauge. Now, the idea behind that, of course, was all to do with felt recoil and reducing felt recoil. Now, at the time, there was concerns because of the boring that the guns would not perform to the best of their ability with fiber wads, but that was just a myth. So the DT11 in its current form is 18.6 tapered bores, whereas the SL2, they have gone back to nominal bores. Now, Beretta obviously spent a lot of time, a lot of money, and a lot of research on this particular part of the SL2. These are 18.4, so they're nominal bored, but it doesn't stop there. What they've done is they've actually tapered the middle section of the barrel. So from the forcing cone, which is 430 millimeters on the SL2 and 480 millimeters on the DT11. So this constitutes with the DT11 of the Stellium Pro setup, whereas with the SL2 it's an all new barrel profile with the boring, with the tapered middle piece and with a longer choke system, and that comes under the term of Stellium Pro X. It is worth pointing out, if you do have a 31-inch DT11 Sporter, that they are only Stellium and they are not Stellium Pro. In terms of the rib, you'll pretty much get the same on whatever gun you have, which is 10x8 standard. You'll find with the SL2 in top specification, you'll get 11mm parallel, and I think there's also an option on the DT11 for 10x10 in the trap. As you can see, both barrels on these guns are ventilated. Slightly different setup with the SL2 to the DT11 in that you've got more of a solid center rib on those barrels as opposed to the big gap on the DT11. Now, just for information's sake, shall we say, these are 31-inch barrels on the DT11 and these are 32-inch on the SL2. Beads are quite different on these guns. You've got a standard red sporting foresight bead on the DT, whereas the SL2, I really like this. This is like old school 1990s 682 Super Sport. They've gone for this red foresight strip thing, which is a little bit like a spirit level. And I would imagine that has again got something to do with the input of they've been told what to do by the pro shooters. Weight-wise, interestingly enough, usually if you get a DT11, say 31-inch, the barrels might be 15, 20, 15, 30, 15, 10. You get a slight variation. The SL2 in this particular format, we've got 15 90-gram barrels in 32-inch. You tend to find that there might be a variation of 20 or 30 grams between each barrel length in each model, but very rarely any more than that. Obviously, bear in mind that trap barrels will be heavier to start with. Whilst we're at the business ending, we've talked about funky beads. We have got what looks like identical choke systems in these guns because of the colour coding of the chokes, but don't be fooled, people. So in the DT11, we have the famous Beretta Optima HP setup. As standard with a DT11, you will get a set of 5 Optima HP extended chokes, and these run all the way from cylinder to 3/4. Obviously, if you want to put the same choke in each barrel, or put flush chokes or Briley's teagues, then that's your pleasure. However, with the SL2, where the barrel technology really comes to a head, Beretta have come up with an even longer choking system. It's 20mm longer than what you got on the DT11, and because of that, of course, you are going to get less shot deformation, better patterns, and when they combine it with all the other clever stuff in this barrel, much less recoil. So SL2 Stellium Pro X, DT11 Stellium Pro, unless you go 31-inch. Back end, and you will see the difference in the lumps. Of course, with the SL2, we have got that world famous SO10 lockup. So you've got bifurcated lumps on the bottom of the tubes with a slightly different ejector system. With the DT11, very similar to the DT10 in all fairness in terms of the way it locks up. And of course, you can noticeably see now the flared shoulders, if you like, on the breech of the barrels on the DT11. Both guns have got nicely engine turned breech blocks. The ejectors are completely polished. And of course, as you would expect, both guns high performance steel proof and of course 3-inch chambers. Final point on the barrels, which is a cosmetic point. This is a 31-inch DT11 Sporter. If you get one of these, it will have matte finish on the barrels as well as the Stellium, not Stellium Pro boring, whereas the SL2, Stellium Pro X, and it's all gloss. So onto the woodwork, and we're going to start with the forends. Now, I'm going to start with the SL2 because this forend is absolutely brilliant. When I shot this gun, it feels so good in the hand in terms of the ergonomics. You just don't feel it. Initially, I thought it might be a bit too slim because I prefer the width of a beaver tail. But having shot the SL2 and having experienced what this forend offers in terms of fit and suitability, it's fantastic. That's not to say the DT11 hasn't got a great forend. I've shot one for a number of years with a beaver tail forend. For me, it's the best pattern. I think it feels the best in the hand. It helps with the balance of the gun. They are also available with Schnabel forends or the rounded London pattern. So you can see if we put them side by side, over and under, haha, okay, the SL2 is actually longer than the DT11. Again, I would assume this was to do with the input of the pro shooters. When Beretta asked them, they said, what is your optimum forend design? How long is it going to be? What shape do you want it? They've come out with that, which is excellent. The checkering is not dissimilar. It's probably a little bit finer on the SL2 than it is on the DT11. The checkering pattern is both kind of clayey, I would say. It's a sporting shape, feels good in the hand. I mean, you can see there's definitely more checkering on the SL2, and all that is going to do is just enable you to get a bit more grip. Forend caps, you can see they look pretty similar, to be fair. The main difference is cosmetic. You have got the Nistan coating on the DT11, and of course on the SL2 you've got this contrasting graphite finish with kind of the DLC black chrome finish surrounding it. If we look inside the Forend themselves, if you look at the Forend iron, they've got the same colour coding with the Nistan and silvery nickel-y stuff on the DT11 and the same kind of two-tone in the SL2. In terms of the mechanics and the way they work, they are exactly the same. Back end of the Forend iron, different shape. You'll notice there that the actual iron itself is a little bit longer on the SL2, which presumably is just to accommodate the longer Forend piece of wood. Right, onto the bit of tree that's stuck on the back end, also known as the stock. So what do you actually get in terms of fit, figure and finish? So we'll come on to the fit shortly. However, the figure or the grade of the wood. So with the DT11, as standard, you will get Class 3 European walnut. What we've got here is we've got quite a nice example in terms of the colour, in terms of the figure. And I've said this time and time on this channel. If you haven't been watching, where have you been? That with a competition gun, it's all about the comfort and the reduced recoil and the strength of the wood. These are guns that are going to be used an awful lot, shoot a lot of cartridges, and we don't want anything too fiddly in the top of the head that's going to give any kind of weakness to that piece of wood. So the SL2, we go a grade above. Remember, it costs 2 Freddos, not 1. And we got Class 4 wood as standard. Again, you can see from this example, got a very, very straight grain, very parallel. And again, it's all to do with reducing the recoil and giving the shooter the best possible shooting experience, while at the same time protecting and increasing the longevity of that piece of wood. As you'll see, the SL2 has got an adjustable comb. This is a B-Fast factory adjustable comb. The DT11 is of course available with this system, but you can also buy it with a fixed stock. SL2 also available with a fixed stock, although I would imagine most people will probably go for an adjustable. So at the back of the stock, we have got the supremely brilliant Beretta microcore system. This is a profile pad system that you can use a longer pad, a shorter pad, put a spacer in it. Very good in terms of recoil, slides nice and easily. And if you buy these guns in their standard format with an 18mm recoil pad, you will have a length of pull of 370mm. So moving forward to the pistol grip area and of course the all-important feel and the hand position. So if we put these guns together, put the stocks together, you will see that they are pretty much identical in terms of the shape of the grip and the radius of the grip. In terms of the palm swell, they've both got one. It's fairly subtle, feels really good in the hand. So in terms of the actual ergonomics of the stock, there's not a lot to choose from. Checkering, and here we see a couple of slight differences. Obviously, you get the continuation of the pattern from the front end, from the Forend. So with a DT11, this is laser checkered, it's not hand checkered, and it's got this kind of curly shape, a little bit like a pointy finger or a witch's claw. Onto the SL2, new style altogether. You've got a little pointy bit at the bottom, and it's actually a little bit less checkery on. It doesn't go quite as high up the neck of the stock as it does on the DT11. Much finer because, of course, this checkering is done by hand in the Beretta custom shop. One of the most important things, I believe, is when you look at what kind of shooter these guns are aimed at. We are talking about people who are at the top of their game. We're talking about a few extra targets, obviously depending on the discipline. And whilst we look at the wood, it's worth pointing out that both of these models, the DT11 and the SL2, are available with a custom fitted option. What I mean by that is the customer can go to the factory in Italy, to Beretta, pick their blank of wood and have the gun completely custom fitted to them in terms of every part of the specification of it, the checkering, the length, the height, the cast, the drop. And because, particularly with the SL2, I believe it's a very, very small cost option. We're talking like in like a rainbow drop on top of your Freddo. I would imagine that a lot of people that are going to invest in this gun are probably going to go down that route. Whilst we're on the subject, I'm excited to announce that as of next year, which is 2025, I will be offering the service of taking clients over to the Beretta factory to have a custom stock made, particularly for the DT11 and SL2 range of guns. So if you'd like any further information about having a custom stock made for one of these guns or another Beretta model, please do get in touch. Standard dimensions for these two guns. Yes, of course, we've just mentioned about having a fabulous trip to Italy to have a custom fitted shotgun especially for you. But if you are to get one off the shelf in its standard format, the sporting versions of both of these guns will come in 35-55mm in terms of the drop at comb and the drop at heel. Of course, should you opt for a trap version, you will only get 10mm of drop, and typically Berettas tend to come at 32-42. Let's not forget, all of these guns, whether you want a trap, a skeet or a sporting variation, are available with the B-Fast adjustable comb system. To finish, obviously aesthetically these look different because we're comparing two pieces of tree which are never going to be identical at the end of the day. Wood is very subjective. We've got class 3 on the DT11, we've got class 4 on the SL2. Obviously, just to add, if you were to go down the custom stock route, you would be picking it for yourself. So before we move on to the cases, or I like to call them the goodie boxes, we'll have a quick look at the weight and the balance and the feel of each gun. So we'll start with the DT11. Now, I've shot one of these with a custom stock for years. I know exactly how they feel, exactly how they point. Now, these guns are actually made on the premium production line at the Beretta factory, about 4,000 or 5,000 a year across the DT11 range, so not masses of them, and they are all factory balanced by Beretta workers. So this one, at £8 8 ounces, out of the box, should be pretty good. And as we can see, smack bang on the hinge pin. Moving over to the SL2. Now remember, this gun weighs £8 15 ounces from the initial review, so it's a heavier gun, but it's got longer barrels and it's got heavier barrels because it's the trap spec, if you like. Now we already know, again, that these are factory balanced, and that is also smack bang on the hinge pin. So £8 8 ounces for that DT11 in 31 inch. Remember, and I've said this before, if you had a couple of ounces per couple of inches, if you like, so you're probably looking 8, 10, 8, 11 in a 32-ish. And with the SL2, obviously, if you went backwards to a 30 inch, 20, 30 grams off it is about right. Right then, onto the cases. Quite obviously, there is a visual difference. There's no denying that. So with the DT11, you get the standard silver Beretta case with the huge Trident logo and the 3 locks. Of course, depending on what barrel length you go for will depend on what case you have. So with a 30 inch, you get a slightly shorter case than a 31 or a 32 inch. It's got the standard blue plush velour suede type of fabric interior with, of course, the stop bolt hole in the top for the stop bolt. So we go on to the SL2. So this is completely different. It's a shorter case. It's more ergonomically designed. It's got more folds and bends and things. We've got a nice leather covered, leather trimmed handle, leather trim around the outside with orange piping in a graphite colour with a black Trident on the top. Inside we can see it looks like a Formula 1 race car. It's got this lovely quilted fabric, again with the orange piping. SL2, we've got Beretta, we've got a leather bit in the top with the PB, which is the premium Beretta logo or badge or shield, whatever you want to call it. So in terms of aesthetics, you can see where Beretta has spent a few more wagon wheels, obviously, on this SL2 case. It just looks a bit premium. It just presents a lot better, whereas the DT11 case is probably just a bit more standard. Both guns come with a set of Beretta pajamas or barrel socks, which are nicely logoed up. So you've got some for the DT11 and some for the SL2. We have got some oil, standard Beretta oil, which I do believe comes with the SL2, but it's currently missing. I must have put it on my chips. We have got the tool for the adjustable comb with, of course, the SL2. If you buy a DT11 with the factory adjustable comb, you will also get this bad boy. So this is where there is a difference. With the DT11, you get 2 boxes. So you get one for your chokes and your choke key and one for your B-Fast weights, firing pins, springs and beads, etc. Whereas with the SL2, you get this certainly better made, larger plastic box. Looks like it should have pike floats in it. And what they've done is they've put everything into the same box. I mean, I've certainly experienced from going to the Beretta factory, they are very environmentally conscious. So you could argue that in this case, what they've done is they've saved a bit of plastic by putting it all in one box. So inside the SL2 box, here we get a closer look at these gigantic Optima Choke XP mega chokes, okay? Along with the B-Fast stock weights, the adjustable comb spacers, the trigger adjusting screwdriver, firing pins and springs, and a choke key. One thing I'm not particularly happy about, I think that a gun that costs 2 Freddos should come with something better than a pair of plastic snap caps. Onto the DT11, we've got obviously the additional chokes with the choke key, standard Optima choke HPs. And in the second box, we have got all the other bits you get with the SL2, spare firing pins, spare springs, spare beads, B-fast weights, and of course the screwdriver to adjust the trigger with. Incidentally, you do also get a set of plastic snap caps with the DT11. As you would expect, both guns come with a book of words and a few bits and pieces of pamphleteria inside. With the SL2, you also get something for keeping your washing pegs in, which is very smart. Warranty-wise, here in the UK, as standard, these days you get a 10-year warranty on both of these guns. These are guns that are going to be out every weekend, getting a lot of use. So again, just an added peace of mind from the manufacturing monsters at Beretta. So we've had a really, really good look at both of these guns, and we've looked at the specifications, we've looked at what comes in the box, we've looked at the balance, we've looked at where Beretta has spent the money in terms of both of these guns. Let's not forget the DT11 is already a massively proven world-beating competition shotgun. The SL2 has only just come into the actual consumer market. So what you might be thinking is, having sat through 20 minutes of watching me waffle on, is the SL2 really worth the extra Freddo? Right, so what I think is this. The DT11 needs no introduction. It has won countless medals worldwide. It is a fantastic gun. Probably in terms of how smooth the gun shoots, the DT11, in my opinion, is unbeatable. It is that good. The trigger pulls are sensational. It has got a massive following worldwide. So what are Beretta trying to do with the SL2? So from my point of view, they are reinventing the competition shotgun. What they've done is they've taken their ideas to the pro shooters to ask them what they think of, to ask them how they can improve, what they can change, just to give them those extra few targets. We're talking about winning world championships, Olympic medals, the very pinnacle of shooting. So with all that in mind, where would I spend my Freddos? So you could argue that 2 Freddos is a lot of money to spend on a shotgun. But is it really? Because what you are buying, what you're embracing, is you are getting the very latest in terms of technology, the cutting edge, the amalgamation of what experts have spent years and years developing and designing and researching to the nth degree. So that's got to count for something. And if it was me, having shot this gun on a couple of occasions now and having been through it with a fine-tooth comb, I would absolutely spend the 2 Freddos. Having said that, is it an extra Freddo better than a DT11? It can't be. The DT11 is probably the most successful competition clay gun the world will ever see. It is sensational. Its reputation precedes it like no other clay shotgun. But after all that, after all the breakdown, after all the analysis, after all the comparison, that is purely my opinion. So to put it in the briefest summary I can, both of these guns are exceptional, but they are exceptional in different ways. The DT11, you know exactly what you're getting. It's already proven. It's a world beater. If you want to go out and embrace the latest technology, it's a bit like buying a new mobile phone with the latest apps and stuff on it, buy the SL2, because that also is sensational. That has been the world exclusive, I believe, side-by-side or over and under comparison of the all-new Beretta SL2 versus the hugely proven and hugely popular Beretta DT11. So which gun do you prefer? Which do you like the look of? Which do you like the features of? Do you own one of these guns? Please feel free to comment below. We want to hear from you. If you've got any questions about either of these guns, or of course we talked briefly in the video about having a custom stock fitted over at Beretta, do contact me. Details are on the screen. Don't forget to check out the website. If you've enjoyed this video, do hit a like. Don't forget to subscribe, and please recommend us to your friends. And don't forget, don't eat all the Freddos.